Nina's fingers trace the rim of her wine glass, watching the burgundy liquid catch the low light of the hotel bar. The ice clinks softly as she sets it down, her wedding ring catching the amber glow from the candles scattered across marble tables. She shouldn't be here. Every rational thought screams this truth. Yet her pulse quickens when she spots him walking through the entrance. Mark moves with quiet confidence, his dark suit tailored perfectly to his lean frame. She watches him scan the room, his eyes finding hers with that same magnetic pull she's felt for months during Daniel's office parties. When he smiles, that slow, knowing curve of his lips her breath catches. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he says, sliding into the leather booth beside her instead of across from her. The space between them crackles with unspoken possibilities. "Neither was I." Her voice comes out, softer than intended. The scent of his cologne mingles with the rich aroma of aged whiskey and leather, creating an intoxicating atmosphere that makes her head spin. He signals the bartender with a subtle gesture, never taking his eyes from her face. "What did you tell Daniel?" The mention of her husband's name sends a guilty thrill through her chest. "That I was spending the evening with my sister." The light tastes bitter and sweet simultaneously on her tongue. Mark's hand rests on the table, inches from hers. She studies his fingers, long, elegant, artist's hands that seem at odds with his corporate lawyer exterior. "And how's your sister this evening?" Nina laughs, a sound caught between nervousness and excitement. "Probably wondering why I haven't called her into weeks." The bartender approaches with Mark's drink, neat whiskey in a crystal tumbler. Mark's fingers brush hers as he reaches for it, and the contact sends electricity shooting up her arm. Neither of them pulls away. "You know," he says, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "I've been thinking about our conversation at the Henderson reception 3 weeks ago." She remembers every word, every stolen glance while Daniel networked across the room. They'd talked about art, about the paintings she used to create before marriage consumed her. Creative spirit. Mark had listened with an intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in years. "About my paintings?" she asks, though they both know that wasn't what made that conversation dangerous. "About how you said you felt like you were disappearing." His eyes search her face, and she feels exposed under his gaze. "That you couldn't remember the last time someone really looked at you." The truth of his words hits like a physical blow. Daniel looks through her now, past her, around her, but never truly at her. "When did she become invisible in her own marriage, Mark?" She begins, but he's already moving closer, his thigh pressing against hers through the soft fabric of her dress. "I see you, Nina." His voice is rough with emotion. "I see how you light up when you talk about color theory, how your hands move when you're passionate about something. I see the way you try to make yourself smaller in rooms full of people who should be celebrating how brilliant you are." Her heart hammers against her ribs. This is exactly what she craved and exactly what terrifies her. The weight of being truly seen after years of feeling like a ghost in her own life. "We can't," she whispers, but her body betrays her words as she leans closer to him. "We're just talking." His smile is dangerous, full of promise, to colleagues having a drink. But they both know this stopped being innocent the moment she lied to her husband, the moment she chose this dimly lit hotel bar over another night of eating dinner alone while Daniel worked late, the moment she admitted to herself that she's been suffocating for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. Mark's phone buzzes against the table. Daniel's name flashes across the screen, and reality crashes back into their bubble of stolen intimacy. Nina's stomach drops as Mark shows her the message. "Client emergency. Working late again. Tell Nina I'll be home around midnight." The irony isn't lost on either of them. Daniel, unknowingly giving them permission to continue this dangerous dance. Nina meets Mark's eyes, seeing her own reckless hunger reflected back at her. Tonight feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one step forward will change everything. "My hotel room is upstairs," Mark says quietly, the invitation hanging in the air between them like a held breath. The elevator ride feels eternal and instantaneous all at once. Nina watches the numbers climb 7, 8, 9 while hyper-aware of Mark's presence beside her. The mirrored walls reflect infinite versions of them, her flushed cheeks, his hands clenched at his sides, the careful distance they maintain that somehow feels more intimate than touching. At the 10th floor, the doors slide open with a soft chime that sounds like a warning bell. Mark's room overlooks the city skyline, floor to ceiling, windows revealing a tapestry of lights against the darkness. Nina moves toward the view, needing the distraction, but she can feel him watching her every movement. "It's beautiful," she says, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "Yes," he agrees, but when she glances over, he's looking at her, not the CITYSCAPE. The silence stretches between them, heavy with possibility. Nina turns from the window, and suddenly the space feels impossibly small. The king-sized bed dominates her peripheral vision, but she forces herself to focus on Mark's face, on the conflict she sees mirrored there. "Would you like some wine?" He moves toward the minibar, his movements careful, controlled. "Or we could just talk." Talking got us into this situation. The words slip out before she can stop them, and Mark pauses, his hand on the wine bottle. "And what situation is that, exactly?" His tone is carefully neutral, but she sees the tension in his shoulders. Nina moves closer, drawn by an invisible thread. "You know exactly what situation." He sets the bottle down without opening it, turning to face her fully. "Tell me anyway." The challenge in his voice sends heat spiraling through her chest. "The situation where I'm in a hotel room with my husband's colleague, wearing a dress I bought specifically because I hoped you'd see me in it." Mark's sharp intake of breath is audible in the quiet room. "Nina, the situation where I've been thinking about you for weeks, wondering what it would feel like if you..." She stops herself, heart pounding. "If I what?" He takes a step closer, close enough that she can see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "If you touch me like you meant it." The confession hangs between them, raw and honest. Mark's jaw tightens, and for a moment she thinks he might pull away, might be the responsible one who suggests she leave. Instead, he reaches out slowly, his fingertips barely grazing her cheek. The touch is feather light, but it sends shockwaves through her entire body. "I've been thinking about touching you since the moment we met," he admits, his voice rough. "Do you have any idea what you do to me? The way you bite your lip when you're thinking, the way you tilt your head when you laugh. I've memorized everything." His thumb traces along her jawline, and Nina's eyes flutter closed. When did anyone last touch her with such reverence? "This is insane," she whispers, completely. His other hand finds her waist, not pulling her closer, but simply resting there, a claim and a question all at once. Daniel isn't here." Mark's voice carries an edge she's never heard before. "Daniel chose work over coming home to you." Again, the truth stings, because she's been telling herself the same thing for months, justifying this moment with Daniel's neglect. But hearing it spoken aloud makes her chest tighten with guilt and anger in equal measure. "I should go," she says, but she makes no move to step away from Mark's touch. "Should" is a dangerous word. His lips quirk into a half smile. "Tell me what you want, not what you should do." "I want..." She opens her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. "I want to feel like myself again. I want someone to look at me like I matter." "You do matter." The intensity in his voice makes her knees weak. "You matter more than you know." Mark's phone buzzes from across the room, breaking the spell. They both freeze, reality crashing back in. He doesn't move to check it, but the sound serves as a stark reminder of the world outside this hotel room, of the consequences waiting beyond these walls. "I should check that," he says reluctantly. Nina nods, stepping back to give him space. Already missing the warmth of his hands, she watches him read the message, sees his expression shift. "What is it?" she asks. Mark looks up, conflict clear in his features. "Daniel." He says the emergency was resolved faster than expected. He's heading home early. The words hit like ice water. Nina glances at her watch. 10:30 p.m. If Daniel's leaving the office now, she has maybe 30 minutes before he expects to find her walking through their front door, fresh from an evening with her sister. "I have to go," she says, but neither of them moves. "Do you?" Mark asks quietly. "Or do you have to decide what you really want?" The question hangs in the air like a challenge, like a dare. Nina looks at this man who sees her, who makes her feel alive for the first time in years, then thinks of her husband driving home through the city, expecting to find his dutiful wife waiting. The choice feels monumental and simple all at once. But as she reaches for her purse, Mark's hand catches hers. "Nina, wait." Their eyes lock, and in that moment, she realizes they've already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The real decision isn't whether to stay or go tonight, it's whether to acknowledge what's already happening between them. "Tomorrow," Mark says softly. "Meet me tomorrow." 24 hours later, Nina stands at the threshold of Mark's apartment, her hand frozen inches from the door. She's been here before in her mind, rehearsing this moment through a sleepless night and distracted day. But now, facing the reality of it, her courage wavers. The door opens before she can knock. "I was watching from the window," Mark says, his smile both apologetic and knowing. "You've been standing there for 5 minutes." Heat floods her cheeks. "I was thinking. Dangerous. Habit." He steps aside to let her pass, and she catches the scent of something cooking: garlic, herbs, the promise of a meal shared. "I made dinner. Figured if we were going to do this, we should do it properly." His apartment surprises her. Where she expected stark bachelor minimalism, she finds warmth, artwork on the walls, books stacked on every surface, a guitar propped in the corner, evidence of a full life, not the empty existence she'd imagined for someone willing to complicate his career for a married woman. "You cook?" she asks, following him toward the kitchen. "One of my many hidden talents." Mark hands her a glass of wine, the same Burgundy from the hotel bar. She notices, along with reading people's minds, apparently. "You were about to leave." Nina settles onto a bar stool, watching him move efficiently round the kitchen. There's something domestic about the scene that both comforts and terrifies her. "I was about to make the smart choice, and instead, I'm here, drinking wine with a man who isn't my husband, in his apartment that's nothing like I imagined." She takes a sip, savoring the rich taste. "What does that say about me?" Mark pauses in his stirring, considering her question. "Seriously, that you're human, that you're tired of being invisible." "Daniel doesn't mean to make me invisible." The defense comes automatically, born from years of justifying her marriage to herself. "Doesn't he?" Mark's tone is gentle but challenging. "When was the last time he asked about your paintings, your dreams? When did he last really look at you, like you were the most fascinating person in the room?" The questions hit their target with surgical precision. Nina can't remember the last time Daniel engaged with her art, or asked about anything beyond household logistics and social obligations. Their conversations have become transactional, efficient, devoid of the curiosity that once drew them together. "That's not fair," she whispers, but the words lack conviction. Mark moves around the counter, standing close enough that she has to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. What's not fair is a brilliant, creative, passionate woman believing she should be grateful for scraps of attention from her own husband. His hands frame her face, thumbs stroking across her cheekbones. The touch is tender, reverent, and Nina feels tears prick at her eyes. "I see you, Nina," he says, echoing his words from the hotel bar. "I see how you light up when you talk about color mixing, how your eyes get this distant look when you're imagining a new painting. I see the way you unconsciously move your hands when you're describing something beautiful." "Stop," she breathes, but she doesn't mean it. "I see the way you make yourself smaller in rooms full of people, like you're apologizing for taking up space. I see how lonely you are, even when you're surrounded by people who should love you better." A tear escapes, trailing down her cheek. Mark's thumb catches it, wiping it away with infinite gentleness. "I see you," he repeats, his voice barely a whisper now, "and you're extraordinary. The kiss, when it comes, is inevitable as sunrise." Mark's lips are warm and certain against hers, tasting of wine and promise. Nina melts into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as months of suppressed longing explode into this single point of connection. This isn't the perfunctory kisses she exchanges with Daniel, quick pecks, hello and goodbye, obligation disguised as affection. This is claiming and surrendering simultaneously. A conversation conducted in sighs and gentle nips, the slide of tongues and the press of bodies. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Nina keeps her eyes closed, savoring the lingering taste of him. "Nina," Mark says softly, and reluctantly she opens her eyes. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking," she says shakily, that I forgot what it felt like to be kissed like that. Pain flickers across Mark's features. How long has it been? The question forces her to confront a truth she's been avoiding. When did physical intimacy with Daniel become scheduled, perfunctory, something to be endured rather than enjoyed? When did she stop feeling desirable, stop feeling desired? Too long, she admits. Mark's hands slide down to her shoulders, his touch grounding her. You deserve to be cherished. Nina, you deserve to be wanted. The words crack something open inside her chest, releasing years of accumulated loneliness and disappointment. She's been so good at convincing herself that companionship was enough. That passion was for other people, younger people, people who hadn't been married for 7 years. What are we doing? She asks, the question encompassing everything this kiss, this evening, this growing connection that threatens to upend her carefully constructed life. I don't know, Mark says honestly, but I know I don't want to stop. The timer for dinner goes off, but neither of them moves. They stand there, foreheads touching, breathing the same air, balanced on the knife's edge between the familiar misery of her marriage and the terrifying unknown of whatever this is becoming. Mark, Nina begins, but he silences her with another kiss, deeper this time, more insistent. When they part again, his eyes are dark with want and something deeper, more dangerous. Stay, he whispers against her lips, just for tonight. Let me show you how beautiful you are. The invitation hangs between them, weighted with promise and consequence. Nina thinks of Daniel, probably working late again, oblivious to her absence. She thinks of her empty bed, her empty days, her empty heart. Then she looks at Mark, this man who sees her, who makes her feel alive and realizes she's already decided. Yes, she breathes, and seals both their fates. Nina wakes in Mark's bed to the sound of rain against windows, and the warm weight of his arm across her waist. For a moment, suspended between sleep and consciousness, she lets herself exist in this bubble of contentment. Mark's breathing is steady against her shoulder, his body curved protectively around hers, and she feels safer than she has in years. Reality intrudes slowly, then all at once, her phone, buried somewhere in her discarded clothes, begins to buzz insistently. Daniel's ringtone. Nina's stomach drops as she extracts herself carefully from Mark's embrace, searching frantically through the tangle of fabric on the floor. Hello, she whispers, moving to the living room. Double quotes Nina. Where are you? I came home last night and you weren't here. Daniel's voice carries the edge of suspicion she's been dreading. Her mind races, crafting lies with terrifying ease. I'm at Sarah's. She had a breakdown about the divorce. I couldn't leave her alone. I texted you. Silence stretches across the line, and Nina's heart pounds so loudly she's certain Daniel can hear it. I didn't get any text, he says finally. My phone's been acting up. The message probably didn't go through. The lies flow like water now, each one easier than the last. I was going to call, but it got so late. And you know how you are about being woken up. Another pause. I'll pick you up. We need to talk. No, the word comes out too sharp, too panicked. Nina forces her voice to calm. I drove here. I'll be home soon, fine. But Nina, next time, make sure I know where you are. I was worried. The line goes dead, leaving Nina staring at the phone with shaking hands. When did Daniel start checking up on her in 7 years of marriage? He's never questioned her whereabouts or demanded explanations for her activities. Everything okay? Mark's voice, rough with sleep, makes her jump. She turns to find him in the doorway, wearing only pajama pants, his hair tousled from their night together. The sight of him, beautiful and rumpled and hers for this stolen moment, makes her chest ache with longing and regret in equal measure. Daniel's suspicious. She moves to the window, watching the city wake up below them. He came home early last night, and I wasn't there. Mark approaches slowly, reading her body language. What did you tell him? That I was with my sister. She laughs bitterly. Amazing how easily the lies come now. Mark's hands settle on her shoulders, warm and reassuring. Nina, look at me. She turns reluctantly, seeing her own conflict mirrored in his dark eyes. Do you regret last night? He asks quietly. The question forces her to examine the tangle of emotions in her chest. Guilt, yes, sharp and immediate. Fear of discovery, of consequences, of everything falling apart. But underneath it all, a deeper truth. Last night was the first time in years she felt truly alive, truly seen, truly wanted. No, she admits, I regret that it took me so long to feel this way again. Mark's smile is soft, understanding. Then we figure it out, together. How? The practical reality crashes down on her. Daniel's watching me now. And what about work? You see him every day, Mark. How do we? We'll be careful. His thumbs stroke along her jawline. The touch infinitely tender. We'll find a way. Nina wants to believe him, wants to sink into the promise of more stolen moments, more nights when she remembers who she used to be. But as she looks at Mark, this good, complicated man who's willing to risk everything for something that might be impossible, she realizes the true cost of what they've started. I have to go, she says, stepping back from his touch. Daniel's expecting me. Mark nods, but she sees the disappointment he's trying to hide. When will I see you again? The question hangs between them, loaded with hope and desperation. Nina thinks of her calendar, her carefully scheduled life, the web of obligations and expectations that define her days. I don't know, she admits, and watches something dim in his eyes. She dresses quickly, aware of Mark watching from the bed, memorizing these last few moments together. At the door, she turns back, needing to say something that captures the magnitude of what happened between them. Mark, I know, he says softly. I feel it too. The drive home through morning traffic gives Nina time to compose herself, to practice the story she'll tell Daniel, to transform herself back into the dutiful wife he expects to find. But when she pulls into their driveway, she sees his car is already gone. Inside, she finds a note on the kitchen counter, called into the office early. We'll talk tonight. The formality of it, the way he signed his initial instead of love or even his name, sends a chill through her. This is not the Daniel she married, the one who used to leave silly notes and inside jokes scattered around their house. Nina spends the day in a haze of nervous energy, cleaning compulsively, starting and abandoning household tasks, checking her phone obsessively for messages that don't come. When Daniel finally returns that evening, she's wound so tight she jumps at the sound of his key in the lock. Hi, she says as he enters the kitchen, her voice artificially bright. Daniel studies her face with the same intensity he usually reserves for hostile witnesses. You look tired. Sarah's situation was intense. Nina hates how easily the lies continue to flow. Daniel loosens his tie, his movements precise and controlled. Funny thing, I called your sister this afternoon to see how she was doing. Nina's blood turns to ice. Sarah lives in Portland. They speak maybe once a month. Perfunctory check-ins that barely scratch the surface of their lives. Daniel has never called her unprompted. Oh, Nina's voice sounds strange to her own ears. She seemed surprised to hear from me. Said you hadn't talked in weeks. Daniel's eyes never leave Nina's face, watching for tells, for cracks in her story. She asked me to have you call her. Said she missed talking to you. The trap closes around Nina like a vice. Daniel knows, maybe not the specifics, maybe not about Mark, but he knows she lied. The question now is how much he suspects, and what he plans to do about it. I must have been confused, Nina says weakly. It was Sarah's friend who had the breakdown. Sarah was just being supportive. Daniel nods slowly, as if accepting this explanation, but his eyes remain cold and calculating. Of course, that makes sense, but Nina can see the wheels turning. Behind his careful expression, can practically hear him building a case against her. For the first time in their marriage, she's seeing the lawyer Daniel becomes in court, methodical, relentless, determined to uncover every hidden truth. I'm going to shower, she says, needing to escape his scrutiny. Nina, his voice stops her. At the kitchen doorway. I love you. You know that, right? The words should comfort her. Instead, they sound like a warning. I love you too, she responds automatically, but the light tastes bitter on her tongue. As she climbs the stairs, Nina feels the walls closing in around her perfect, suffocating life. But for the first time, instead of accepting the cage, she's plotting her escape. 3 weeks of careful choreography follow stolen text messages deleted immediately. fabricated errands that provide alibis, the exhausting performance of normalcy when Daniel's watching. Nina becomes an expert in deception, crafting a double life with meticulous precision. But Daniel is building his own case with equal care. Nina discovers this on a Tuesday afternoon when she returns from another gallery visit. That was actually 2 hours in Mark's apartment. She finds Daniel's laptop open on the kitchen counter, her own face staring back from the screen security camera footage from the hotel lobby, where she and Mark first met. Her knees nearly buckle. Daniel has been tracking her, investigating her movements with the same thoroughness he'd apply to a complex litigation. The evidence is laid out like exhibits in a trial, credit card statements highlighting charges she can't explain, location data from her phone, even photographs long lens, shots of her and Mark entering his building. Impressive work, Daniel says from behind her, his voice conversational. Nina spins around, finding him leaning against the doorframe with arms crossed, studying her reaction with clinical interest. Daniel, I can explain, can you? He moves into the kitchen with predatory calm. Because I've been trying to understand. For weeks, my wife, whom I've provided for, supported, given everything she could want, sneaking around with my colleague like a common don't. Nina's voice cuts through his building anger. Don't you dare reduce this to that. Then what would you call it? Daniel's composure cracks slightly, revealing the fury underneath. What do you call lying to your husband, betraying your marriage, destroying my professional reputation? I call it trying to remember who I used to be before I married you. The words explode out of Nina with surprising force. Before I became invisible in my own life. Daniel's laugh is sharp, bitter, invisible. You live in a house I bought, drive a car I paid for, attend parties where everyone knows you as my wife. How exactly are you invisible? When was the last time you asked me about my art? Daniel, when did you last touch me like you actually wanted to? Not like it was another item on your to-do list. Nina's voice rises, years of suppressed resentment pouring out. When did you stop seeing me as a person instead of just an accessory to your perfect life? That's not, Daniel begins. But Nina cuts him off. I was suffocating, and you were too busy building your career to notice. Mark noticed. Mark sees me. Mark. Daniel spits the name like a curse. My colleague, who's been fucking my wife in his apartment while I work 60-hour weeks to support our lifestyle. The crude language hits Nina like a slap. This isn't the controlled, articulate man she married. This is someone driven by pure rage and wounded pride. It's not just about the sex, Nina says quietly. Oh, please enlighten me. What is it about then? Nina looks at this man she shared 7 years with, searching for any remnant of the person who once made her laugh, who once listened to her dreams with genuine interest. All she sees now is a stranger wearing her husband's face. It's about being wanted for who I am, not who you think I should be. It's about someone being excited to hear my thoughts, my ideas, my fears. It's about feeling alive again instead of just existing. Daniel processes this, his lawyer's mind cataloging her admissions, building his counter-argument. And for that feeling, you were willing to destroy our marriage? Our marriage was already destroyed, Nina replies with stunning clarity. We just didn't want to admit it. The truth hangs between them, stark and undeniable. Daniel's anger deflates, slightly, replaced by something that might be recognition. So what now? He asks, his voice eerily calm. Do you want a divorce? Do you want to run off with Mark and play house? Nina considers the question seriously, thinking of Mark's apartment, of the life they've begun to imagine together in whispered conversations. I don't know what I want, but I know I can't keep pretending to be happy here. Daniel nods slowly, as if she's confirmed something he suspected. I see. He closes the laptop with deliberate precision. Then let me make this simple for you. He pulls out his phone, and Nina's stomach drops as she recognizes what he's doing, calling Mark. Daniel, no, Mark, it's Daniel. I need you to come over, now. We need to discuss your relationship with my wife. Nina watches in horror as Daniel calmly gives their address, his tone professional and terrifying in its control. When he hangs up, he turns back to Nina with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. If you want to make choices, Nina, then you'll make them in front of both of us. No more hiding, no more lies. You'll choose your future right here, right now. 20 minutes later, Mark stands in their living room, his face pale but determined. The three of them form an uneasy triangle, years of marriage and weeks of passion colliding in their suburban sanctuary. "I suppose you both think I'm the villain here," Daniel begins, his voice deadly quiet. The inattentive husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. Neither Nina nor Mark responds, but their silence speaks volumes. "Maybe you're right," Daniel continues, surprising them both. "Maybe I stopped seeing you, Nina. Maybe I took you for granted." His eyes shift to Mark. "But you knew she was married. You made a choice to pursue her anyway." Mark steps forward slightly, protective instincts overriding caution. "I fell in love with her." The simple declaration hits the room like a bomb. Nina's heart lurches. It's the first time Mark has used that word, and hearing it in front of Daniel makes it impossibly real. Daniel's composure finally cracks. "Love? You fell in love with my wife and decided that gave you the right to destroy my life?" "Your life." Nina steps between them, her own anger finally matching Daniel's. "What about my life? What about what I want?" "Fine," Daniel snaps. "What do you want, Nina? Tell us both right now. Choose." The ultimatum lands with devastating finality. Nina looks between these two men, one representing security and 7 years of shared history, the other representing passion and the possibility of rediscovering herself, both watching her with desperate intensity, waiting for a decision that will shatter someone's world. But as Nina opens her mouth to speak, she realizes the choice isn't between Daniel and Mark at all. It's between the woman she was and the woman she's becoming, between safety and authenticity, between surviving and truly living. "I choose," she says finally, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "Myself." The words ring through the room, a declaration of independence that changes everything. Daniel's face goes ashen as he realizes she's not choosing either of them. She's choosing freedom from a marriage that suffocated her and an affair that, however passionate, began in deception. Mark's expression shows understanding mixed with heartbreak, recognizing that their connection, however real, grew from Nina's need to escape rather than a desire to build something new together. "I choose to stop living a lie," Nina continues, looking directly at Daniel. "Our marriage is over. It's been over for years. We just didn't have the courage to admit it." She turns to Mark, her heart breaking at the hope dying in his eyes. "And I choose to find out who I am when I'm not running from something or towards someone else." The silence that follows is deafening, but for the first time in years, Nina feels like she can breathe. For the first time in years, she feels free.